45 years ago today, my parents, Matthew and Gladys Friedman, got married. So in honor of my parents' anniversary, I wanted to tell a bunch of things some of the most important things that I have learned from my parents. So the first thing that I learned from my parents is the importance of doing what you are passionate about. So my parents met in medical school, and so my mom trained to become a pediatrician, and my dad trained to become a radiologist. So most doctors who become a certain kind of doctor, then they sort of stick with that path for basically until they retire. But my parents haven't done that. My parents have, so my mom trained as a pediatrician, and about 10 years into being a pediatrician, when my mom was 35 with 3 little kids, I'm at home, my mom decided what she was really passionate about was psychiatry. So my mom went through a whole new residency like years and years of retraining in order to do what she's really passionate about, becoming a psychiatrist. And now my mom, she's several years past retirement, and she is keeping on going. She just loves what she does. And my dad is a bit similar. My dad trained to become a radiologist, but after he'd been working as a radiologist for quite a few years, he decided to go back. He decided he was really interested, he was really fascinated by business. So he did something very, very unusual for a doctor. He went back, he got an MBA, he got an MBA, and then a few years after that, then my dad decided that really what he was passionate about wasn't really like clinical radiology, like looking at x-rays and stuff. That my dad decided what he was passionate about was cancer research, that he really wanted to help to research to find a cure for cancer. So my dad, about 10 years ago, he transferred from the radiology department of his hospital to the oncology department. And now my dad just turned 70, Mazel Tov, like this month. And he is still working. He's going strong, and he's so passionate, and he loves what he does, and he travels around to conferences, and he just is really passionate about what he does. And so me, my brother, my sister, and I, we're doing very, very different things in life. You know, my sister is a chemistry professor, my brother is a lawyer, and I'm doing, well, you guys know what I'm doing. And so basically we're doing very, very different things, but I think that all of us have really learned from our parents, and that we understand the importance of doing what you're passionate about. Okay, so thank you, Mom and Dad. The second thing is, so my teacher, Rabbanit Yemima Mizrahi, she was telling us this past week how important it is when you're doing like a mitzvah, that to keep in mind that you're doing it for the Shekhinah and not for the Shechina. That you're doing it for God, for the Shekhinah, for the divine presence, and not for your Shekhinah, not for what's the neighbor going to say. Your Shekhinah is your neighbor. Okay, so my parents are people who really do, they do what they believe is the right thing to do, and they really don't care so much if their colleagues think this, or their neighbors think this, or everyone's going to say this, or everyone's going to say this. My parents, they do what they believe is the right thing to do, in work and in their personal lives, they're very idealistic people, and they do what they believe is the right thing. The third thing that I've learned from my parents is that for my parents, marriage is their marriage is the most central relationship in their lives. My parents are best friends, and they're very busy people. But every Sunday, then they go and do things together, and they're very loyal, and very basically clearly, marriage is the most central relationship to them. And I think that has really served as a role model for me. That the number one relationship that you should invest in isn't that this friend or that friend or this neighbor or that neighbor. It's your marriage. Okay. The fourth thing is, there's this saying: if at first you don't succeed, try again. And my parents, my mother in particular, she lives this saying. My mother, for many years, she's had a dream to learn Hebrew. My mother loves Israel. She's a really big Zionist, and she's got a whole bunch of Israeli grandchildren. So for various reasons, she's very determined to learn Hebrew. So my mother has been, so my mom, if you're familiar with the Ulpan system, with the Hebrew class system, so it starts out with Kita Aleph. It starts out with like the very, very, very beginning level, which is when you learn the alphabet and you learn very, very basic words like boy, girl, school, that kind of thing. So my mom, I think she was in Kita Aleph. She was in like the very, very beginning level, I think for at least 5 or 6 years. Just constantly going through it again and again and again and again. And now my mother has been in Kita Bet, which is like advanced beginners. So I think that she's been in Kita Bet, I think for 15 years. But she never gives up. She, like every time I speak with her, she has a notebook and she writes down all the new Hebrew words, and I think every single time I've spoken with her over the past 2 decades, my mother has asked me about this Hebrew word or that Hebrew word or this, what's the root of this word, or how do you conjugate this verb. And every time she comes to Israel, thank God my parents come about 3 times a year, and every time she comes, she has like her notebook and she has her Hebrew workbook, and she's always learning Hebrew. And I think it's really, really an inspiration. I think it's really, in fact, quite awe-inspiring to me. That really, you know, like if there's something that you want to do, you should just keep on going until you succeed. My mom, I just see like how she's making this over the years. She's just made such tremendous progress. It's really, really amazing. Okay, so the 5th thing, and this I was trying to figure out what's the most important thing I've learned from my parents, and this might be the most important thing, is that my parents have really, really an Ein Tova. My parents, like, they always try to see the positive, and they always try to see like the good in a situation. So I know I was just thinking, like, I was just remembering how like many years ago my parents and I, we went on a vacation, and we went to a place that like on the face of things, like it looked like it was a bit run down. But I remember my parents walking around with my parents and them saying, you know, my mom saying, look at that flower. Can you believe that flower? What an amazing flower. And then we saw like a building, and my father said, wow, look at that building. Do you see the architecture of this building? What a beautiful building. And then I remember like we walked by a playground, and I remember the playground was just sort of like rusting, and the swings were broken. But my parents said, isn't it amazing here in the middle of the city that they're building a playground for the children? Like my parents always try to see things with an Ein Tova. It's not that they try, like it really just comes naturally to them. And I think that might be this ability to like see, you know, to see things from a positive point of view might be one of the most important things that I've learned from them. The 6th thing is that my parents have a very, very, very strong sense of how important it is to give to the world, to give back to the world. They have a real sense of social responsibility. And I think that I, my brother, my sister, like we've all really learned from that sense of importance of giving to the world. Okay, the 7th thing and the final thing, although I'm sure that there are many, many more things that I could say, but just giving you a taste of the different things I've learned from my parents. The 7th thing is to always keep on learning. I remember once, I think I wanted to learn like an obscure language or something like that, and I remember saying to my dad, you know, maybe this is a waste of time, and my dad said, you know, Jenny, anything you learn, it can be helpful. Anything you learn can be good, it can be helpful. And my parents are people who are always, always, always learning. They're always like going to different museums and reading books about different things, and, you know, going to plays, and they're always, you know, reading the New York Times and learning different things, and very, very, very curious people. And I think that, you know, that all of us kids, we're people who like, all of us, we're very curious, and we love to keep on learning about different things that interest us. So on that note, I want to wish to just bless my parents with many, many, many more years of this wonderful marriage that they have, and many, many more years of continued good health and happiness, and just so many blessings and so many good things at Me'ah V'Esrim until 120. And I want to bless all of you Jewish moms with a wonderful, wonderful week.